Hi, this is Ian Marie with the Oregon Farm Bureau, and welcome to this episode of Fred Talks.
My name's Logan Padget. I'm a fifth-generation dryland wheat farmer in Sherman County, Oregon. I'm a member of the Sherman County Farm Bureau, and I'm the chair of the Young Farmers and Ranchers Committee.
Thanks for being with us today, Logan.
Yeah, no problem.
Logan, can you tell us a bit about how the drought and the heat has impacted your wheat crops?
Well, being a dryland farmer, we don't have any irrigation water to rely on, although I'm understanding that that's also in short supply this year, but we are entirely dependent upon what Mother Nature gives us. So less water is obviously means a smaller crop to begin with, and then with the heat that we've had this summer has compounded the problem and made it even worse. We're definitely cutting a below average crop this year.
And that's what you're doing right now. You're in the combine?
I am in the combine. We're harvesting soft white wheat, running a case combine with a 40-foot header on it. And normally under average yields, I operate this combine at about 5.5 miles an hour, but this year with the reduced yields, we're traveling about 7 miles an hour. The yields are down, depending on where you're at, about 30 to 50%. The protein is a little higher. There's lots of types of wheat where you have a minimum protein and you have to shoot to keep it above that. But soft white wheat is a low protein wheat, and the extra stress on the plants increases the protein, which is not good. It's not exactly what our buyers want. We're still in the range, but we're higher than where we would like to be.
And is this one of the worst years that you've experienced in terms of the drought and the yield?
It's definitely right up there. I would say in my lifetime, it's definitely among the worst, if not the worst. We've only been harvesting for 3 days now. So there's a lot of fields, a lot of acres left to cover, and things may change a little bit. But of the 2 fields we've been harvesting on so far, they're pretty far down there yield wise. You know, it'd be one thing if we had good rainfall this year. You know, if you had a really healthy plant going into weather conditions like that, it would have fared a little better. But the crop was already hurting when that heat wave came through, is what really did it in.
In terms of the smaller yield this year, what will that mean for your bottom line, or is it too early to tell?
It's a little bit early to tell. Like I said, we'll have to see how the rest of the fields do. You know, our first field was about a 30% below average yield, but this field's about 50% below average. So, I mean, there's some wiggle room in there depending on which fields got hit by certain storms this summer. You know, some of them might have caught a little rain, just went through this one little part and caught this field and maybe helped it out a little bit more than it did the rest of the fields. We do have higher prices right now, so that'll kind of soften the impact. But, you know, if you don't have any bushels to sell, it's going to still be a reduction in income. I will still be drawing some on my crop insurance this year.
So you have crop insurance on your field?
Yes, we do have multi-peril crop insurance, which is what protects against, you know, just drought conditions, or, well, I don't believe we've ever had a flood condition in Sherman County, but protects against your low yields. You can get up to 85% coverage on your 10-year proven average yield on a field. The prices are up right now. I would rather have the bushels to sell than being compensated for them on crop insurance.
You're a farmer and you're proud of your product.
Absolutely. 80% of the wheat in the Pacific Northwest is exported primarily to the Asian Rim. And the reason they buy from us and ship our grain halfway around the world is because we produce a high quality product.
What kind of things is soft white wheat used for, and how is it different than other kinds of wheat?
So soft white wheat, like I was saying, is a low protein wheat. So it goes primarily to make things that don't rise. The number one market for us is Asian noodles. So think like your pan fried noodles you get at an Asian restaurant, or ramen style noodles. But some other things are, like I said, anything that doesn't rise. Some of this wheat does go to Mexico for tortillas. You get flatbreads in the Middle East, and we're shipping some out to South America these days. I'm not 100% sure what they're making with it down there. I'm just not familiar enough with the culture yet, unfortunately. But and then you'll get it in a blend with some other types of wheat. They'll take, some hard red wheat and some soft white wheat and blend them together to create a higher quality. Think of your dense breads in your fine pastries and stuff. Hard red wheat is a high protein wheat, and it goes to make things that do rise, your breads, your bagels, your hamburger buns, cake, and things of that nature. Nationally speaking, you also have soft red, which is another protein wheat, similar market demands as what soft white has. And then there's also what they call durum, which is grown in Montana and North Dakota. And that's primarily used for Italian style pasta noodles.
It's interesting that the market is so international.
That's mainly our market. And there is a soft white market in Michigan. Michigan area is the only other place in the United States that grows soft white wheat. And they have the domestic market with like Nabisco for Oreos and Chips Ahoy and Triscuits and things of that nature. But here in the Pacific Northwest, we have access to the Port of Portland, and it's cheap river freight getting our products down the river to the port, and then the port is just immediate access to the ocean, and it can go anywhere in the world. We'd be crazy not to try to take advantage of the export markets.
Do you deal with your international customers, or is that someone else on your team?
So the flow of grain, the way it works is I'm harvesting the grain, and I will haul it to what we call the inland elevators away from the river and sell it through Mid-Columbia Producers Grain Cooperative. And they will ship it down to Biggs Junction, is our river elevator, and there they will put it on a barge to get it to Portland. So MCP is selling grain to the exporters. The exporters will deal with the overseas customers.
You said you're on your third day of harvest. How long does harvest last usually?
For us, in an average year, we can usually knock it out in about 3 weeks, depending on breakdowns and logistics and all the variables. But we'll call 3 weeks cutting 6 hours or 6 days a week for 12 hours a day average. This year, because the yields are down, we're traveling faster. We might cover those acres a little faster, which is not exactly a good thing. You don't hope for a long harvest, but you don't want a super fast and short harvest either.
Is it just you and your dad out there, or do you have other employees?
We have one other employee. We hire a neighbor kid to run our grain cart. Mostly these days, it's my dad, myself, and the hired hand. My grandpa is around still. We used to run 2 combines, so we'd have 2 combines cutting, and then before my sister went away to college and became a physical therapist, she would drive the bank out wagon, and then I would jump back and forth between our 2 trucks. I would take a load of wheat away and then dump it, and by the time I got back, the other truck would be full. But we have condensed down to 1 combine. It's a simpler, more streamlined operation. Less maintenance we have to do on the equipment, but this combine's big enough, it puts out the same productivity as our 2 old ones. So we still keep 1 truck driver fairly busy most years. But yeah, most of the time it's a 3-man operation. And Grandpa will come out to help us migrate vehicles, and he goes on parts runs and things of that nature. So, I mean, he's still involved in harvest, even though he might not be directly seen in the fields.
Can you explain to us exactly what the combine is doing? Is it extracting seeds?
Yes. So up here at the front, we have the header, and it cuts the crop. And then the big reel with the fingers on it that you see going around pulls the crop onto a draper belt. And then the draper conveys the grain into the center of the combine, pulls it into the machine. And then right behind me and below me is what's called the rotor. And the rotor spins and it rubs against what they call a concave. And then that will separate the seeds from the straw. And then it will then be shuffled back to the screens, and the screens are kind of like a sieve, and it will let the grain fall through and the chaff will go out the back. And what you end up with in the tank is mostly entirely wheat. Everything that we do these days is precision agriculture. The beeping and the dinging you hear in the background is my GPS unit. Well, it's a multi-function screen. It allows me to keep an eye on everything that the combine's doing. It handles this combine is equipped with auto steer. And then if I come over to this screen and zoom this little map out a little bit in the corner, you can see the field here, maybe, with the different colors on it, indicates the different yields in bushels per acre going across the field. There we go. And so the red areas and the white areas are pretty low. The yellows and the greens are better. And so what we'll do with that information is we can take it and plug it into our GPS unit in the tractor next fall, and we use it for a prescription fertilizer map. So where there's more wheat coming in, we can increase the fertilizer rates and maximize our yield potential. But where there's less yield, it cuts the fertilizer rate back, which saves us money, and it just reduces chemical usage overall.
Fantastic. So it's going to be a long day today, perhaps 12 hours, you said?
We started about 8 o'clock this morning, and we'll go probably until about 8 o'clock tonight. If it's nice, warm day, 85 and sunny is really the ideal grain thrashing weather. Keeps everything dry, makes the thrashing easy to do. If you start too early in the morning or you run too late in the night, you get an increase in moisture, which makes the grain harder to thrash. And if the moisture gets too high, of course, it gets difficult to store without things happening to it. But most days we can run 12-hour days pretty easily. This year, I think especially 2 years ago, 2019, when we had that really cool, wet summer, we were just due to the weather, we were reduced down to about 10-hour days because we couldn't get as early of a start in the morning. We had to wait for the dew to dry off. So
what is a summer fallow rotation?
So out here with as dry as it is, we're in a 10 to 12 inch rainfall area. Each year we get 10 to 12 inches of rain. And so what we actually do is we only have half the farm in crop each year. And the reason we do that is that we give the land a year to rest, and it stores up moisture. It gives us a chance to kill the weeds. And so we're trying to raise a crop off of 2 years worth of moisture. I mean, some of it evaporates over the course of a year while it's laying fallow. But the idea is instead of raising a crop off of 10 or 12 inches of rain, I'm raising a crop off of 20 to 24, although realistically it's more like I would say 16 to 18. Compared to the higher rainfall areas, you have to cover twice as much land in a year to make your living. I have half the farm that I'm mowing the stubble on and killing the weeds on and stuff like that, and then the other half's in crop. Then the next year the two sides will be switched. This fall we'll plant the side that's currently growing nothing, and then this side that I'm harvesting right now will be fallow, saving up the moisture and all that stuff. The other big thing with no-till, or with this rotation, is we've switched to no-till farming. Has been a godsend for this area. You can't do it everywhere. Over here, It's revolutionized our farming. Our erosion's been cut in half, at least, if not more. Without tilling the ground, without opening it up, it just keeps that much more moisture in the soil. The downside is you have a chemical bill because we can't go out and cultivate the ground to kill the weeds. And so we have to spray Roundup on the fields to keep the weeds off. But at the end of the year, we're raising a higher quality crop, more yield, and it's less detrimental to the environment in the process.
Switching gears a little bit, so you are chair of the State Young Farmers and Ranchers Committee. Can you tell us a little bit about YF&R?
Yeah, so Young Farmers and Ranchers helps promote young people in agriculture. The average age of farmers and ranchers these days, I believe, is up to around 57, maybe 58 years old. And so Young Farmers and Ranchers focuses on the age group that's 18 to 35. And just, giving the young people the information that they need to get started in agriculture, whether it's just, modern technologies in farming, how to go about getting loans to start your operations, and just the camaraderie of it. There's not a whole lot of young people in agriculture. So introducing young people to other young people makes it a lot more enjoyable to get into the business. I got involved when I was in college at Blue Mountain Community College in Pendleton. And that's been 10 years ago now. And I'm still finding value in this program every day. We put on various conferences and, learning experiences throughout the year. Most years lately, it's been a little bit of slow due to the COVID, but, we hope to get that ramped back up locally in the state here this year. You can go to these conferences at your state levels. You can go to my favorites are the national conferences where you get to meet and talk to people all across the country. All we raise here is dryland wheat and sometimes a little bit of barley as a rotational crop. I don't have the diversity around here like they do in the Willamette Valley and other parts of the country. And so getting to meet people who have different experiences, different types of problems, talk to them about what they're going through and things like that. It's amazing. And I might have an hour-long conversation with somebody who's growing pumpkins or radishes or something. And even though, there's no way that I'd be able to do that here, there might be one little tidbit of information that I take out of that conversation and I bring back to the family farm, and I can use it to improve my own operation. And it's all the little things like that that just really make it worthwhile.
And then there are definitely things that all farmers and ranchers have in common, right?
Oh yeah. The other part of the reason that I stayed involved with Farm Bureau moving forward is as I've grown up, I've learned more about the legislative and political ramifications on the industry, and how Farm Bureau helps push through some of the better legislation and ideas and regulations and helps cancel out the ones that are hurting. Regardless of what state you live in, where you are, what you raise, I'd say that between the weather and the politics, they're two things that you're going to be fighting pretty much every year, no matter what you do.
In Oregon, less than 1% of Oregonians are farmers and ranchers. So just a lot of people have no idea what it takes to raise food and fiber and foliage.
Yeah, that's the other thing. And especially through things like here with your Fred Talks, most of the people that see this are probably going to be other farmers and ranchers, but getting out on social media and telling your story is a huge thing. Learning how to tell my story better and then utilize my platform to the fullest to try to educate some of the people in town as to why we do what we do. There's some people that won't buy anything that's not, that doesn't have a gluten-free sticker on it, for instance. Well, the only things that have gluten in them are things that are made with wheat products. You go buy a gallon of milk and it's got a gluten-free sticker on it. Well, yeah, because there's no gluten in it to begin with. You're not buying anything special, but you're paying a premium for it. And then, sometimes you get people that comment on your social media posts and, well, you should be doing it this way. And, being able to say, well, I don't do it that way because A, B, and C, to try to give them an idea is, that's going to be what it takes in the long run. We're obviously outvoted. If, trying to think of an example here, but say everybody in the city of Portland decided we want every single farmer in the state to go organic starting this year. It doesn't make sense for everybody. There's organic farmers and they do what they do. And, I believe in the right to farm. You should be able to farm what you want, how you want. But to have people that are not involved in agriculture telling me that I should go organic would be a huge reduction in crop output and crop quality. And then that market that I was talking about earlier, our overseas market's going to look at that and go, well, we don't want to buy that anymore. And then the next thing you know, we're out of business.
What are some things you love about being a farmer, Logan?
Almost everything. There's obviously some days that are better than others. There's some years that are better than others. Some days you have to do something that you really don't enjoy doing. But overall, it's not a job to me. It's a lifestyle. I come out here. I'm away from the high population areas. I get to work with Mother Nature. I'm outside, essentially. I may not be truly outside here in my air conditioned cab, but I'm out in the country. I'm not locked up in a cubicle somewhere. I could never have a job like that. And everything changes. Each year brings its own unique set of challenges, and it keeps things interesting. This year, it's hurting with the drought and the heat and everything, but next year we're going to get more rain, I sure hope, and everything will be better, and it'll seem even that much better because of how bad this year was. It's always changing. It never gets dull, I'll tell you that. I love everything about it. You get some kids, even the city kids that grow up maybe playing with Tonka toys. I'm out here driving my life-size Tonka toy right now.